And now that they've won, what we're seeing is a kind of censorship that is akin to a Kristallnacht, where they decide what we can communicate about.
Fox News host Jeanine Pirro made an absolutely disgusting historical analogy on Fox and Friends this morning because she doesn't like the fact that the right-wing social media app Parlor has been deplatformed on all of the major tech platforms. She voiced her frustration by comparing these actions to an event that occurred throughout Nazi Germany in 1938 called Kristallnacht. So take a look at this quick video, and I will be back to provide more context and information.
Let's bring in Judge Jeanine Pirro, host of Justice with Judge Jeanine. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's your reaction to that? Parlor shut down.
Well, look, they gave us a taste of this pre-election when they suppressed the Hunter Biden story. And now that they've won, what we're seeing is a kind of censorship that is akin to a Kristallnacht, where they decide what we can communicate about.
So in order for you, the viewer, to know how bad of a statement this is, you have to know what the Kristallnacht was and what her comment is in reference to. I want to read you something here from Wikipedia. It says, quote, Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, also called the November Pogrom, was a pogrom against Jews carried out by SA paramilitary forces. That's basically the brown shirts, the Nazi stormtroopers, and civilians throughout Nazi Germany on November the 9th through the 10th of 1938. The German authorities looked on without intervening, so they did nothing. The name Kristallnacht, or Crystal Night, comes from the shards of broken glass that littered the streets after the windows of Jewish-owned stores, buildings, and synagogues were smashed. The pretext for the attacks was the assassination of the German diplomat Ernst von Roth by Herschel Grinspan, a 17-year-old German-born Polish Jew living in Paris. Jewish homes, hospitals, and schools were ransacked as attackers demolished buildings with sledgehammers. Rioters destroyed 267 synagogues throughout Germany, Austria, and the Sudetenland, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Over 7,000 Jewish businesses were damaged or destroyed, and 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and incarcerated in concentration camps. So that's the proper historical context here. And according to Raw's story, in an article titled Jeanine Pirro Shutting Down Parlor is, quote, akin to Kristallnacht, end quote, when Nazis murder Jews, it says, quote, Pirro expressed her outrage during an appearance on Fox and Friends after tech companies Apple, Google, and Amazon prevented the social media company Parlor from using their platforms. The tech companies alleged that Parlor had violated terms of service by spreading hate speech that was linked to the violence at the U.S. Capitol last week. And then further down, it says, according to Pirro, conservatives are, quote, getting the sense that they are being canceled. They can no longer communicate, and this is a First Amendment issue, end quote. In fact, as the article states, social media companies are private entities and are not subject to the First Amendment. Now, before I share my thoughts, there's an account on Twitter called Sleeping Giants that has a thread detailing their attempts to contact these platforms the day after the Capitol Hill insurrection happened and remind these apps that Parlor was in direct violation of their terms of service. So as you can see here, Sleeping Giant says on the 7th, honest question for at App Store and at Google Play. That's Apple and Google for Samsung. If Parlor continues to allow incitement and calls for violence, doesn't that break your terms of service for apps? And then on the 8th, they said, yesterday we asked the App Store and Google Play to enforce their own terms of service on Parlor based on the sheer number of violent threats on the platform with hashtag pull Parlor. Look at the very clear terms set by these two app stores below. Then it has some images that you can read. I'm not going to read every single tweet here. It breaks down the terms of service for both platforms. But the most important thing here is it says update. This was on the 8th. It says update. The calls for violence over on Parlor are getting much, much worse. There are now open calls for the murder of police officers and planning for violence on January the 20th. That's Inauguration Day. This obviously severely violates the law, much less the App Store and Google Play rules. Hashtag pull Parlor. So here are my thoughts. Comparing anything to Nazi Germany is usually not a good idea, especially when it is done in bad faith, the way it is here by Jeanine Pirro. Jewish homes and businesses were destroyed, as I explained. Tens of thousands were sent to concentration camps, as I read. What she is saying here is that deplatforming is the work of brown shirts, that removing Parlor, an app being used to facilitate a violent overthrow of the U.S. government, is akin to throwing conservatives in concentration camps. It's such an extreme and over-the-top thing to say, but this is not new for Jeanine Pirro. She has made a career on Fox News being extreme and over the top. She's done this a lot on Fox, and I believe it is people like her who are fanning the flames of this unrest. As the Raw Story article makes clear, this is not a free speech issue, regardless of how bad some people want to turn it into one. You do not have the right to incite violence through speech. That's never been a thing. The First Amendment is meant to protect actions like what Colin Kaepernick did by kneeling during the national anthem to shed light on state violence, which would then prompt Trump to tell NFL owners to, quote, get those SOBs off the field, end quote. Trump, the outgoing president, tried to use his bully pulpit to stop free speech in the NFL. That's what the First Amendment was meant to prevent. It was meant to prevent stuff like what Trump tried to do. Funny, I doubt Jeanine Pirro had a problem with that, or anybody on the right who hypocritically uses the First Amendment when they only feel like their speech is under attack, right? But that's why I'm here, to expose these bad right-wing arguments and to show you how full of you-know-what they actually are. But my name is Brian Lewis, as you all know. Be sure to like, share, and comment down below.